Hello folks, Alex here, this is Alex Unabridged, and today it's time for another episode of Recent Acquisitions. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, I thought I'd do another little episode of this seemingly quite regular series now, where I just go through some of the bits and bobs of books that I've picked up in the last month or so. So this covers from sort of mid-July into kind of early August, and I'd usually wait a bit later, but I've got to go away for a bit at the weekend, so I thought I'd get this done now because there's a few on the list already. So let's start off with the physical books that I picked up in the last month or so. I went to my local town of Glossop the other day and had some time to kill when I was waiting for the train home, which is always dangerous because there's an Oxfam second-hand bookshop near the station. So I went browsing in there and I found this amongst a couple of others. And this is The Black Corridor by Michael Moorcock. I liked the look of it. I was attracted by the cover. I've not read a lot of kind of sort of mass market paperback sci-fi stuff, so I liked the sound of it. I will read you the blurb. It says, "The world is sick. The forces of chaos have energized the planet. Leaders, Führers, juices, prophets, visionaries, gurus, and politicians are all at each other's throats, and chaos leers over the broken body of order. So Ryan freezes his family into suspended animation and sets off for the planet Munich 15040, 5 years distant. There he will re-establish order in a new world and create a happier, healthier, saner and more decent society with the ones he loves. But they are suspended and they cannot talk, and he is alone in space, and he's been travelling for 3 years, and he will still be travelling for 2 years hence. And he cannot see his destination, and he is alone and lost and cracking up." And I thought, oh yes, bit of isolation madness, in space. Sounds intriguing. I will give it a go. So yes, that is the first one. Whilst I was looking at that, I also saw another couple of science fictions in a kind of three for two kind of deal in the Oxfam bookshop, and one of the other ones is Blackpool Vanishes by Richard H. Francis. And again, I just liked the cover of this to start with. And Blackpool, I was thinking, is that the Blackpool I'm thinking of, as in the one in the northwest, the kind of the seaside town? And yes, it is apparently that Blackpool. And the blurb for this makes me think that this could be quite trashy. It does say it's satire. Time Out said satire, poetry and real imagination, but the blurb does make me think this could be quite trashy as well as, satirical. It says, "Plump, silent stone may be the butt of everyone's jokes at his local, the abandoned baby, but when Blackpool vanishes one fine July day and is replaced by a giant bubble of transparent opacity, Stone suddenly becomes a very important person indeed, the only man in the world who can explain Blackpool's disappearance. Will the buxom Bunty and intrepid Tom Standish succeed in bringing Blackpool back? And what part do poetry, coitus interruptus, and a philosophical treatise on rugby league play in the unfolding drama?" So yes, it could be terrible, it could be hilarious, It just sounds a bit bonkers to me. Interesting, it says Richard Francis was a research fellow at Harvard for 2 years before becoming a lecturer in American literature at Manchester University. So, he's obviously, the author's obviously coming, from, good standing. And this is his first novel, apparently. This was his first novel. So we'll just give it a go, basically. I might stick this into the Anything Goes pile for later in the month with Garb August. But I don't know. It's just, again, it's one where I just thought, yeah, you've hooked me with that. I will give that a go and see what this is all about. Sounds bonkers. And then the third one that I found in that deal is this. The Hugo winners, 68 to 70. So this is an anthology of short stories, science fiction short stories. And ordinarily this wouldn't interest me particularly. I just kind of looked, thought I'll look at what's in it, and then pretty much actually squealed out loud in the bookshop. Fortunately, I was the only one in there when I read the back, because it has in it I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison, which I've been looking for ages. I haven't been able to find it easily at all on in digital or Audible form, anything like that. I just couldn't find it, or at least I couldn't find it when it wasn't really expensive. And I've wanted to read it for a while since I heard about it. I think it sounds fascinating. And so yeah, that's in here. So I was like, right, well, I'm having that then. And then I kind of looked at what else is in there. There's another Harlan Ellison in there, The Beast That Shouted Love at the Heart of the World. There is Time Considered as a Helix of Semi-Precious Stones by Samuel R. Delany. And I keep hearing good things about Delany and interesting things about Delany, particularly science fiction. So I definitely am interested to read that. But it's also got in We're Search by Anne McCaffrey, Riders of the Purple Wage by Philip Jose Farmer, Gonna Roll the Bones by Fritz Lieber, Night Wings by Robert Silverberg, The Sharing of Flesh by Powell Anderson. Those are the ones that are in there. So if anybody else knows any of the other authors or the other stories, and if you know that they're particularly great or ones that are your favourites, do let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear from people, because I know very little about any of those other writers. So I'm very, very interested to read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and I will read that in September. And then the final physical book that I got in the last month or so is this one. The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. This gorgeous book arrived by surprise one day in the post as a gift from a very lovely friend who just thought that I should have it, that I should have this on my shelves. That if that I would particularly enjoy it. I only know bits and pieces about kind of the story from the film Hugo, and kind of hadn't really ever looked into the book, because although the film was okay, it didn't necessarily capture me. But having just even flicked through this, I can see that this is going to be a magical ride in terms of the illustrations and stuff. The illustrations are gorgeous in terms of their the style of them, the drawing style of them, and there's text as well. But I mean, I love the shading work, the shadows and shading work of this is beautiful. So I am gonna read that again, probably September. I'm saving this one for I've got way too much on my plate with Garb August at the moment to be putting anything else in for this month. But yeah, I was like very, very pleasantly surprised by this addition to my beautiful books collection. Something tells me that once I've read this is probably one that will deserve a video of its own. So yes, beautiful book. Okay then, that's the physical books done. So what did I pick up in ebooks this month? Well, I had a deal and some kind of free credit on Kindle to spend on ebooks. So I bought finally Queen of Teeth by Hailey Piper, which has been on my wish list to read for quite some time, and it's been on Piles of Possibilities, on a couple of occasions this year. But I just didn't get to it, mainly because it was one that I would have had to buy, and it was quite an expensive ebook as well. And it was full price, it was 10 quid, over 10 quid. So seeing as I had some credit, I thought, yes, I'm getting that now. So this is, the blurb for this is, Within 48 hours, Yaya Betancourt will go from discovering teeth between her thighs to being hunted by one of the most powerful corporations in America. She assumes the vagina dentata is a side effect of a rare genetic condition caused by alpha-beta pharmaceutical decades ago when she and several thousand others were still in the womb. But when ABP corporate goons upend her life, she realises her secondary teeth might be evidence of a new experiment for which she's the most advanced test tube. A situation worsened when Yaya's condition sprouts horns, tentacles, and a mind of its own. On the run and transforming, Yaya may be either ABP's greatest success or the deadliest failure science has ever created. Yeah, this is one, as I say, talked about this before, and I do really want to read this, although I'm a little apprehensive of it, because just the idea of teeth there makes me go, but yeah, I hear really good things about this. So yes, this I'm glad I've got it in the collection now, and I will get to this before the year is out, I promise. Okay, next up, I've got one which was one of the Amazon first reads, and this month I picked Androne by Dwayne Worrell, which is sci-fi, the blurb for which is, humanity's new war is an enigma with an enemy threat beyond all imagination in this near-future novel of mind-blowing adventure where the fate of mankind rests in the choices of one ordinary soldier. In one terrifying event called the 99, all major military installations on Earth were eviscerated. But by whom? Foreign powers? AIs? ETs? Every conceivable adversary was ruled out. Reeling from massive casualties and amid hundreds of conspiracy theories, humanity creates andrones, bipedal android drones piloted remotely by soldiers who will never again need to be on the field of battle. Newly minted androne pilot Sergeant Paxton Aries has now been deployed into a fight against an enemy no one understands or has ever seen. So yeah, I was intrigued by this. I'm not usually one for something that uses kind of mechs and androids and kind of drone type stuff. It's, you know, that's kind of tech doesn't necessarily draw me in. But the idea that this is against, you know, an unknown enemy, and it's kind of, you know, it's still on Earth. It's not, you know, it's not something on external planets, which again, sci-fi wise, I tend not to go for stuff that is kind of either hard sci-fi or like sort of space opera type stuff. I like stuff which is based kind of in our world or a version of our world, maybe a apocalyptic setting, that kind of thing. And yeah, I just kind of liked the sound of it. And I think the guy who's written it is a screenwriter, perhaps. And has written a fair few things, you know, reasonably high profile things he's been on the writing teams for. So yeah, as I say, this is a freebie, essentially. So I will give it a go. Next up is one of Amazon's 99p deals, and that is The Exorcist, the 40th anniversary edition of the classic. The Exorcist is in my top 10 all-time favourite fiction list. But I haven't read it in at least 10 years, probably closer to 15. And I mean, when I reread it in this edition, we're getting up towards like the 10th time or something that I'll have read it. But it'd be interesting to read the 40th anniversary edition, because I know it's been tweaked. I know it's been changed slightly. The edition that I had was like from the 90s, which I don't know whether that was changed much from the 1971 edition. So it'll be interesting to read the 40th anniversary edition, but just really interesting to read it again after so much time, and to see whether it still, you know, has the same impact on me, to see whether it still like scares me as much as it used to. Okay, next up then, we've got another 99p deal pick, which is Chain Gang All-Stars. I will put the author's name up on screen, because if I try and pronounce it, I will butcher it. So this is apparently about two top women gladiators fighting for their freedom within a depraved private prison system not so far removed from America's own. And so, yes, this is what the blurb says about it. Loretta Thurwar and Hamara Hurricane Stacker are the stars of Chain Gang All Stars, the cornerstone of CAPE, or Criminal Action Penal Entertainment, a highly popular, highly controversial, profit-raising program in America's increasingly dominant private prison industry. It's the return of the gladiators, and prisoners are competing for the ultimate prize, their freedom. And it says, Chain Gang All Stars is a kaleidoscopic, excoriating look at the American prison system's unholy alliance of systemic racism, unchecked capitalism, and mass incarceration, and a clear-eyed reckoning with what freedom in the USA really means. I've heard a couple of good reports of this. Willow over at Books and Bao really enjoyed this one. And I think it's a really interesting premise. As well, so yeah, I saw that one pop up on a daily deal. I was like, yep, I'm having that. that had gone on my list when I saw Willow and a couple of other people talking about it. So that is all the ebooks that I've got recently. Then I've picked up 4 audiobooks, all in 2-for-1 sales over at Audible. So the first one is Neuromancer by William Gibson, narrated by Jason Fleming. This is, from what I know of it, meant to be a cyberpunk science fiction masterpiece. I've wanted to read this for a while, but it's one of those books that I find the idea of quite daunting, because I find cyberpunk fascinates me, but it takes a lot for my head to kind of get into it. And I think, having listened to the sample of this, I think audiobooks might be my way in. So interested to give that one a go. That will be read in September for part of my sci-fi month. And sticking with the sci-fi audiobooks, I also picked up The Three-Body Problem by Chijin Liu, I think that's pronounced, translated by Ken Liu, and narrated by Luke Daniels. This is set against the backdrop of China's Cultural Revolution, and a secret military project sends signals into space to establish contact with aliens. An alien civilization on the brink of destruction captures the signal and plans to invade Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth, different camps start forming, planning to either welcome the superior beings and help them take over a world seen as corrupt, or to fight against the invasion. The result, apparently, is a science fiction masterpiece of enormous scope and vision. Again, this is one that I keep hearing about, that it intrigues me, although again, it's one where I'm quite daunted by it. Like, am I gonna be able to understand this? So some science fiction, or a lot of science fiction, I feel, is a lot smarter than me. And I think I struggle with it for that sometimes, and it depends how hard the sci-fi is in this, in terms of both difficult and what you'd call hard sci-fi. So yeah, it was, as I say, it was part of a 2-for-1, so now lost if I don't like it, but it is one where I kind of feel like, yeah, I really should give that a go, because it does interest me. The premise does interest me. Okay, next up in the audiobooks is The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter, narrated by the wonderful Fiona Shaw. And the blurb for this goes, one night Melanie walks through the garden in her mother's wedding dress. The next morning her world is shattered. Forced to leave the comfortable home of her childhood, she's sent to London to live with relatives she's never met. Aunt Margaret, beautiful and speechless, and her brothers, Frankie, whose graceful music belies his clumsy nature, and the volatile Finn, who kisses Melanie in the ruins of the pleasure gardens. And brooding Uncle Philip loves only the life-sized wooden puppets he creates in his toy shop. This classic Gothic novel established Carter as one of our most imaginative writers and augurs the themes of her later creative work. I got this mainly because, as I say, it was in a 2-for-1 sale, and I definitely want to read more Angela Carter after having 2 fabulous experiences with both The Bloody Chamber and Knights of the Circus earlier this year. She is definitely on the list as an author whose work I want to, kind of keep chipping away at and keep reading more of. the fact it's narrated by Fiona Shaw, who I think is wonderful. I think that'll be I'd be very surprised if that wasn't an excellent performance. Okay, and last up on the audiobooks is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, narrated by Amara Jasper. And again, T. Kingfisher is one I've not read any of her work, but pretty much all of it, when I look at the blurbs, most of it is on my to read list, because I think the premise of a lot of her stuff sounds fascinating, and quite dark, some of it as well. And there's horror elements to a lot of it, although not necessarily Nettle and Bone, I don't think. This is a bit more fantasy, but it's dark fantasy. It's definitely dark fantasy. So this, again, 2-for-1 sale. I thought, yep, nothing lost if I don't like it. This one is kind of from what I hear, kind of a subversion of a fairy tale, essentially. The blurb says, this isn't the kind of fairy tale where the princess marries a prince. It's the one where she kills him. Okay, sold. It goes on. Mara never wanted to be a hero. As the shy, convent-raised third daughter, she escaped the traditional fate of princesses, to be married away for the sake of an uncaring throne. But her sister wasn't so fortunate, and after years of silence, Mara is done watching her suffer at the hands of a powerful and abusive prince. Seeking help for her rescue mission, Mara is offered the tools she needs, but only if she can complete 3 seemingly impossible tasks. Build a dog of bones, sew a cloak of nettles, and capture moonlight in a jar. But as is the way in tales of princes and witches, doing the impossible is only the beginning. Hero or not, now joined by a disgraced ex-knight, a reluctant fairy godmother, an enigmatic grave witch and her foul familiar, Mara might finally have the courage to save her sister and topple a throne. So I do like a good fairy story. I do like the darker ones. If we're talking sort of in the vein of kind of Grimm, the Grimm brothers, and Hans Christian Andersen, and some of the darker fairy tales of old, then if it's got elements of that to it, then yeah, I think I'm probably gonna like it. And I think this is the sort of thing as well, which I think will probably be best served as an audiobook for me. So that concludes my my list of recent acquisitions for the last month or so. Thanks very much for watching, folks. If you've read any of these books, and particularly if any are your favourites, do let me know in the comments, as always. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more content coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.